Solo Leveling has mid writing. Its storytelling is average. Most of the characters are one-dimensional and all very underutilized. And its pacing is just simply way too fast. But even with all of those flaws, this anime is still really good for some reason. And other people seem to agree with me, as this anime has completely taken over the world in less than 2 years. It's the third most popular anime on Crunchyroll, not just this year, but of all time. And Solo Leveling episodes have crashed the internet and will continue to do so on numerous occasions. So if Solo Leveling has so many major flaws, then why is it so successful and good? I'll be going over the 3 major flaws in Solo Leveling and why they don't really matter, because there's one thing about Solo Leveling that completely outshines all of its flaws and makes it so good and successful. Flaw number 1, storytelling. Now, it's no surprise that Solo Leveling does not have the most complex story in the world. And that's not a bad thing. That's kind of the whole point of why I'm making this video. But that aside, its storytelling is average at best, to be honest. The story follows the same format of storytelling that many other popular and successful anime follow. And that is the formula of showing off a super weak protagonist at the start of the story, showing their journey of gradually getting stronger and stronger by facing tougher and newer opponents and having to overcome them. That's not a bad story formula. It works for many different anime, as I mentioned. But Solo Leveling takes this story formula to a whole different degree of insanity, because usually stories that use the same type of writing formula mix in other things with the story, like subplots. Maybe we'll focus on side characters and just other elements here and there in the story. But Solo Leveling just strictly focuses on Sung Jin Woo getting stronger and stronger and just facing tougher and tougher opponents. Another thing Solo Leveling does is use the same story tropes over and over again, like the last minute rescue. A narrative moment when a character or group of characters is in grave danger and all hope is lost. We do not see this trope at all at the beginning of Solo Leveling because Sung Jin Woo is still too weak. But the stronger and stronger he gets and the more we get into the series, we see this story trope being used a lot. Like Jin Woo saving all of the S-rank hunters on Jeju Island, the last minute rescue. Sung Jin Woo saving his sister from being crushed by a orc, the last minute rescue. Sung Jin Woo saving his best friend Jinho from being beaten to death by Wang Dong-soo. And you get the point. This story trope is used a lot. The storytelling technically is repetitive. And I'm not trying to say that it doesn't work, but it is the same thing over and over and over again. And because the story is just all about Sung Jin Woo and him getting stronger, we don't really focus on other characters, other subplots, and just other parts of the story that should be explored. But now going into the second flaw, the characters. Unless your name is Sung Jin Woo, then you are fodder. Yup, every single character in Solo Leveling ends up becoming fodder or useless. At the start of the Solo Leveling, the S-rank hunters from South Korea are the big dogs. People like Cha Hae-ing, Baek Yoon-ho, Choi Jon. They all just become useless after Jeju Island. They all have their moments in the earlier parts of the stories, I guess you could say, but for the most part, they don't really do that much, especially for the way that they're hyped up at the start of the story. Cho Jong-ing was legit called the ultimate hunter, and he does legit nothing in the story. I don't even think we see him actually fight, or have a, real battle at all in this story. And Solo Leveling does a really good job at hyping characters up, just for them to really do nothing and be super disappointing. Like all of the S-rank hunters from Japan. The S-ranks from Japan get one-shotted and do nothing in the story, and for the most part, we don't get any characterization, we don't know any of their powers, and I don't even know, any of their names either. And of course, the biggest disappointment of all the Japanese hunters, Yoto Ryuji. The strongest hunter from Japan, this man was hyped up beyond belief. He was going to become the 6th national ranked hunter. But all he does in the story is get folded twice. Once by Sung Jin Woo, and then of course once by Buro, where he is one-shotted and killed by him. Goto Ryuji had a lot of potential to be a top-tier character in Solo Leveling. But instead, we see nothing from him. We get no characterization from him, we don't see his powers, and we really just don't learn anything about this character, even though he is hyped up beyond belief and one of the strongest hunters in Solo Leveling. Another group of very disappointing characters is the national level hunters themselves. For the most part, these 5 characters, we don't see their powers, we don't learn anything about them. The only person we really learn anything about is Thomas Andre, and Thomas was the only good national ranked hunter. All the other ones just were very underutilized and are barely in the story. It's kind of like the same situation with Squad Zero from Bleach, where these group of characters were just super hyped up just for them to be really disappointing. And of course, this is a common theme in Soul Leveling amongst pretty much every single character. And another thing I hate about Soul Leveling is the fact that there's no side cast. There are so many characters in the story that pop up for like 10, 15 chapters and then they just dip to never be seen ever again. The only character that really sticks around the whole entire story is Jinho, but he just ends up becoming comedic relief and nothing more. And all the characters in this story really just fit into a certain character role and have little to no characterization. And there are tons of stories where we see this happen, where we kind of just focus on the protagonist and the side characters, or all the other characters in the story don't really get any characterization or focus on them. But even then, Sung Jin-woo is not a super good written character. I mean, I love Sung Jin-woo. He's the GOAT, he's an ore farmer, he's badass. Like, he's just a cool dude. But in terms of writing, there's not a whole lot to his character. His development of turning into this stoic, cool character is fun, but I wish we got more from him. I loved all the stuff to do with his mom and his dad, and I love seeing all the moments where we saw Jinwoo get emotional, where he would cry, where he would be happy, and I wish we saw more moments like that where it really showed off his character more. That's one thing I liked about the earlier parts of the story, is that when Sung Jin-woo was weak, it honestly feels like he was more of a person, compared to later in the series where he just becomes really stoic. I just think the cast of characters could have been so much more than what we got, and as a whole, a lot of these characters were just wasted potential. But a lot of character issues actually comes from the pacing issues, which is the third flaw. The pacing. Most of the problems that Soul Leveling has comes from the fact that the pacing is just way too fast. All the problems with the characters being underutilized, not really exploring the story to its full potential, is because for some reason the people behind Soul Leveling just didn't want to take the time to do those things. A really good example of this is Christopher Reed, the 3rd highest ranked hunter in the world, and he gets off-screened. And for no good reason either. Up until this point in the story, none of the national level hunters have actually been showed off yet. We have not seen any of these 5 characters in action. And Christopher Reed was fighting the Monarchs, and the Monarchs become the main villains later in the story. And up until this point in the story, we haven't seen any of the Monarchs fight or in action as well. So there's this golden opportunity to show off the Monarchs and one of the most powerful hunters in the world and give us a top tier fight in Soul Leveling, but for some reason we just don't see the fight. Chris gets off screened and we don't see any of his powers, and the 3 Monarchs that he was fighting also don't show any of their powers either. This fight was very built up beforehand as well, so it really did seem like we were going to get this really cool epic fight between these group of characters, but then we were just disappointed and we didn't get anything. And obviously, we have seen this happen before. Godo versus Burrow, another really good example. Once again, we just don't see the fight for some odd reason, and I really don't understand why the author and the people behind Soul Leveling wouldn't take the time to just show off something from these fights, because they were just missing out on a golden opportunity. Now moving on to the story pacing problems, this story could have easily been another 100 chapters. Or let me rephrase that, it should have at least been another 100 chapters. Soul Leveling is 200 chapters, this should have been at least a 300 chapter story. Could have seen characters fleshed out in the story other than just Sung Jin-woo. We could have seen so many cool fights, so many more cool moments. There is some hope because the anime plans to have 5 seasons and a movie, and at the current pace that the anime is moving, they're gonna have to add a lot of extra content, because by the end of season 2 they already covered probably like 60% of the story. If Soul Leveling didn't have such fast pacing, then this story could have been so much more than what it is. But now, putting aside all of the flaws, everything I've mentioned so far about Soul Leveling and all the character problems, pacing problems, story problems, etc., they don't matter. The thing that completely outshines all of Soul Leveling's flaws and makes it good is the fact that it's so enjoyable. And I know that sounds really silly, but a very overlooked aspect of creating a story is just making the story enjoyable. I'm going to use comedy movies as an example. You don't watch a comedy movie for the story. You don't watch it for the characters. You watch it to laugh. You watch it to have a good time, aka it's enjoyable. That's why you watch a comedy movie. And the exact same applies to Soul Leveling. And no, you're not watching Soul Leveling to laugh, of course. But you watch it for the hype moments. You watch it for the aura farming. You watch it for the cool fights. You watch it to see Jinwoo beat the shit out of some new tough opponent. These things that I've mentioned and some other things here and there make the story what it is, of course, and it all plays into it being enjoyable. Soul Leveling legit revived my enjoyment for anime. Remember back in 2022 when Demon Slayer Season 2 and Attack on Titan, the final season, were both airing at the same time? That was just peak. I have not experienced anything like that amazing in terms of anime since that 3-month time period in 2022 where AOT and Demon Slayer both aired. But I get the same feeling when those two animes were airing I do with Soul Leveling. I have not been so excited to watch an anime weekly like I have with Soul Leveling in years. And I know what happens because I've read the manhwa. And speaking of the manhwa, there are so many just amazing, hype, cool moments that I have reread over and over and over again. For example, the Song Jin-woo versus the Burrow fight, I have literally read that fight like 50 times. The Thomas Andre versus Song Jin-woo fight, I have read that fight 20 to 30 times. Like so many other miscellaneous moments here and there that I have reread over and over and over again because I just love these moments so much. Like they're so enjoyable to read. And I'm sure the same will apply when these moments get animated and all of the fans of the show will just go back and rewatch all these moments because they're just so cool, hype, and just enjoyable. But in my personal opinion, Solo Leveling is the perfect example of why creating a enjoyable story is always going to be more important than creating a complex one.